You and I talked briefly, as you said a minute ago, and I was intrigued that you spoke with huge respect for HR. Now, those that know that sometimes I'm a bit of a knocker of HR, in spite of all my years of working with them, you have a very different view, so just share your opinion about HR and how you work together.
I think what's lovely about working in HR, particularly here, although actually I'd say the same thing about Sky where I worked previously, is that HR here creates enormous value. And I guess what I mean by that is that they are incredibly commercial. They do a lot of organisational design, but they're also incredibly focused on kind of talent management, succession, and actually very well thought of and regarded by the business. And that's something I think that's sort of been a bit of a sea change in the last few years, is that HR is no longer just about tea and Tampax. It's now very much at the core of some of the most important decisions a business makes, not just about its people, but also actually about its strategy.
I like that answer, and I've mellowed over the years, and I agree with you. I think that HR actually increasingly should be absolutely sitting at the centre. Now, we then also discuss a little bit about talent management. I don't forget, I'd always assumed that talent management sat within HR, but actually you have not a different take, but you're doing some interesting things there. So could you just share a bit about talent management?
So I guess the disclaimer is that I'm no talent management expert, but what I will say is that for me, resourcing absolutely has to have a kind of seat at the table in those conversations about your internal talent, and that goes to not just kind of helping to sort of identify who the high potentials are, and I think that for me has a kind of development impact, an HR impact, and crucially also a line manager impact is actually here how well does the management population really understand their own people. Are we using all of the skills that people come in with? And also I think we have to be quite open to evaluating our hires as well, and I think that's something that tends to make recruiters a bit twitchy, is if you start to think about, actually, when we interviewed this person we thought they were amazing, and a year on, do we still feel that way, and did we identify the right kind of skill gaps in interview that we can now see are there a year on? I think the other kind of really crucial thing that recruitment does is that they should absolutely kind of proactively drive internal people into vacancies, and so we have a kind of coalface view of the succession plan that maybe traditionally HR hasn't had, and so I think for us it's really crucial that we sort of use the access that we have to kind of seeing where gaps are, but also understanding in the longer term where external skill gaps and opportunities are, and kind of really feed that into the whole talent management and succession planning process.
So the next question is the S one. No, I don't mean sex.
Good.
Social media. I don't know. What's your take?
I think you're too grumpy about social media is my take. I think it has a huge kind of value as a sourcing tool, first of all. So I think what I would do is sort of differentiate between social media for sourcing and social media for engagement. And I think
Brilliant.
Those are two kind of really core things to understand, is that you can't necessarily do all the same things with the same tools. So I've seen a lot of other employers, for example, doing Facebook groups, and it's something that we've chosen not to do actually. So how we use Facebook is probably quite different. We use Facebook to serve targeted ads to small populations that we can find through profile data. And so one of the great things about Facebook is how much you can slice the data sets that come from people's profile information. So for example, if we wanted to, sorry Arcadia, but we could show an ad to all Arcadia buyers, and that, that's and plus it's pay-per-click, so we only pay when it works, so that's a kind of huge advantage that we get from that particular media. My team also tweets, so we tweet a mix, we haven't done an automated Twitter feed, and again, I think this is really important for us, is that we want to try and use social media in a way that is a little bit social, at least, so in a human way. So we do a whole mix of kind of talking about what the team's working on, what jobs we have, but also kind of random stuff. So the ones that we tend to get most response to is I've got a very talented team who love to bake cakes for birthdays and that kind of stuff, so we tend to tweet a fair bit about what new cakes we've made, and people seem to be really interested in our cake tweets, which is surprising but great. And so I think it's also about kind of making sure that if you as a recruitment team are going to do something, that you really think about what you want to tell people, not only about what jobs you have, so that's kind of fairly broadcasty, but also actually how do you want to connect them to your culture. And so for us, the cake thing took us completely by surprise, but actually a big feature of working here is that it's the kind of place where we bring each other baked goods and then compare notes on how they've gone down. And so actually that's been a really nice kind of way of engaging via social media, I guess.
So you heard it first, cake tweets.
Yes, if you're all suddenly doing cake tweets next week, I'm going to know why.
Hashtag cake tweets at Monsoon will become the new hash. I like that.
Yeah.
You were going to say.
And then I guess the final one for us is LinkedIn, and that's sort of the daddy of social media for us. And I guess my big question is, should we even really be describing LinkedIn as social media? Because to me, it's a business network. Fundamentally, people are completely comfortable with you approaching them directly, either to headhunt or source via LinkedIn. They're explicit about their purpose there, and it's essentially a digital CV a lot of the time. And so for us, that's, we're on it all the time. It's kind of the first thing we check in the morning and the last thing we check at night. It's rivaling our e-recruitment system in terms of how much we use it, and it's a huge hire source for us. And so I guess that, I don't know whether we're going to call it social media anymore, but I think that's the sort of the really major one that we couldn't live without.
Brilliant, and thank you for describing me as the grumpy old man, because it's a very apt description. You come from an economics background.
Yes, that's right.
Therefore, you look at things in terms of ROI, and we were discussing what is the ROI on engaging with people when recruitment traditionally has been about cost and time per hire.
Right.
What's your take on that?
For me, it's the difference between spray and pray. So put ads out and wait to see what comes in, and it's what I would call sit back recruitment versus sit forward recruitment, which is, why would you put an ad out, get 50 responses to reject 45 of them, when you could go proactively to 5 people that you know are going to be relevant via social media and via engagement. And I guess for me, engagement goes to kind of actually really understanding what you're I think you have to engage with your own business first, if you like, to really understand what your needs are now and what your future needs are going to be, and metrics comes into that, of course. So actually really looking at what your hire patterns have been, but also something that's really important is starting to really look at how you individualize your experience when you are kind of using something that is kind of a broader medium. So for example, your own career site, and I guess what we use metrics for in that context is that we want to try and get to a point where we're delivering a lot of content, but that we're helping people to kind of take a tailored route through it. So similar to buying a book on Amazon, whether you do that through a recommendations engine, so people who applied for this job also applied for this, or you might also like content X. But I think also to get to a point where we understand, okay, so the last 3 buyers that we've recruited came into the site from Google, and they looked at our Meet Our People buyer profile, and they looked at our rewards section, and then they went to apply for buy a job. They applied for on average 2 buying jobs, and then they left. And where did they go when they leave? Have they gone to a competitor's job board? Have they gone to someone else's career site, or have they gone off to shop on monsoon.co.uk? And I think for us, kind of getting to a point where we really understand what the user journey is will ultimately help us to kind of make sure that people are having as slick and as individual an experience as possible, even when it's through mass media. So it should essentially feel like you've been headhunted, even when you are just applying directly through the website.